Welcome back to our coaching conversations, joined now by the head coach of Brown County, the Hornets, Tom Little. Coach, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on being the 1A representative from the south side of the bracket here.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be here. I'm glad we're still playing.
Yep. Well, Coach, let's start. Before we look ahead, let's look back at an incredible semifinal game with Calhoun. I mean, describe the emotion through that game and the feeling when you see Cooper Adcock's then Hornet defense come up with that 2-point conversion stop late in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's gotta rank pretty high in all-time moments in 23 years at Brown County for you.
Yeah, my phone's still going off right now, just with guys saying, "Is that the best play?" Best play ever, probably best moment ever. We've seen some great plays, great runs or huge interception. But definitely a moment where that team with the extra point that we felt was missed, that becomes roughing the kicker to then a yard and a half, and they're going to go for the win, and just to see our guys say it's not going to happen. And awesome job by our defense, good job by our defensive coordinator having those guys ready and just making sure they were prepared for that big moment.
Coach, it's rare for a team to avenge, not one but two regular season losses in the postseason. So, what about this team kind of gave them that resilience or the mental toughness to recover or to learn from those regular season games when in the postseason? I mean, it's win or go home.
Yeah, I think when we go back and we look at that Camp Point game, I think as coaches we probably tried to call plays more than we tried to get it to players. And in that game, it didn't work out. We were trying to call the right play and instead of just letting our guys make plays. And then in the Calhoun game, the first half we just didn't go our way. And defensively, they did a nice job. We just gave them the short field. And Coach Hoots did a great job of. I say it's his Jason Hayward speech. He really tore into them at halftime, and they played different that second half. We didn't win, but we won that half. And then to go in and play a good team like Athens and they gained some confidence, and then just winning that game against Camp Point. And I think that game came down to us as coaches. We let the players play. We didn't try to call the perfect play. We just called the play that should be called, and you guys have to execute and you have to make it. And they trust in us in doing that. The defense have been having some crazy games and turnovers, creating things, and they're flying around. They've gained the confidence, and there was a lot of young guys that started the season that way, and they're not young guys anymore. So they're playing at a high level.
Yeah. Well, playing at a high level, you've set, I believe, 3 school records this season: touchdowns, rushing yardage. You've done that by committee in some sense and without Brody Phelps. So talk about how this group of backs has been able to find success this year. What's been working?
I think they're a very unselfish group, and Brody was one of our better athletes. He had some great runs, great catches early in the season, and then got hurt in that Camp Point game. And he's slowly working his way back. But we've always said all season that we've got great depth, and we've got a lot of guys. Somebody asked me about the rushing, and I said, we don't have a guy over 1,000. They said, what about how many guys are over 800? And I said, I think one. It's just we give it to a lot of guys, and we go with who's hot. And right now we've got a lot of guys playing at super high level, and we got a lot of guys then that are just itching to get into that game too. So we feel like our depth is still pretty good, for this point in the season, and we're just excited about who's going to make the plays this week.
Well, part of that depth, I mean, Trey Fullerton, he's a load of a football player. You're their leading rusher and leading tackler. What's this all-stater meant to this program?
No, he started for us as a sophomore, and his brother Tice got hurt, and Tice was our kind of leader. He was a junior and got hurt, and then that weight fell on Trey, and so Trey, since a sophomore, has learned to call the defense and learned to be that guy that has to get the tough yards, and he keeps getting bigger, better, more confident, and this senior year he really took off, and we've tried to limit him and some of the hits and stuff he's taken, but when you get to this point in the playoffs, you got to let him go. So he's been doing really well in the playoffs for us, and it's been a big attribute on both sides of the football.
Yeah, well, you talk about both sides of the football. We mentioned the offense. Let's talk about that defense. Is it 12 turnovers in the last 3 games?
Oh yeah, Yeah, I know they had 5 in the first half against Carrollton, and I forgot that we had those couple, I think somebody said 3. I just read that, 3 in the first half against, Calhoun, which I is sometimes hard to remember when you get caught up in those moments, but, yeah, the whole playoffs, the Camp Point game, they were turnover crazy too. Just they're able to get the ball and, they're athletic, and I think just Coach Hughes hasn't really changed what he's done. It's just they've become more comfortable with it. They know where they're supposed to be, and now you're seeing that athleticism come out. And we've got some playmakers on both sides of the ball.
Coach, we're great friends with Matt Shuckman and Chris Dewar of Muddy River Sports, and I read the story this morning, and you were asked about it on your media call, so I don't want to dive too deep in it. I know it's an emotional thing, but I love the story that came out about you holding on to a ticket from last year's state championship game. It's been on your mantle, on your dresser, wherever it's been, and it's always led you to this belief that this team was the team that was going to get you to a point where you don't need to buy a ticket to a state championship game. You're going to be in it. So, what is it about this, just that story, the community, the team that led you to that belief?
You know, uh, every year I feel like this group has a chance to do it. And I grew up in Carthage, and when you grow up in Carthage, you just assume you're going to be in a state championship. It's just
Right.
you don't get there, it's just there. And when we came to Brown County, that wasn't the assumption. We were not good, and a lot of people thought we were crazy for coming here. But we're like, it's a chance for me to coach with two of my best friends in the coaching tree, and Heath Fullerton, who's still with me, and Ben Ellifritz, and you get 3 guys that can join the staff. You're going to do some nice things. So those guys have helped us. But we've had some teams we felt were just about there, and we couldn't get past that hump. And for us, that's kind of when we went to the state championship last year. I'm looking at those teams, and I'm like, the Althoff, that kid was phenomenal. But I'm like, I feel like this team in a normal year could get here. Althoff was not the normal 1A team last year, but I'm like, if Camp Point could have been here. It could have been Casey, and we felt like we were with those 2 teams. And I said, I'm going to keep this ticket. I'm just going to keep it as a reminder about how good these guys can be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. And it's kind of a magical season when you get to ride this wave with your son Vince as quarterback, honorable mention all state. I mean, what's it mean to you to be, on this journey together? Was this, something you talked about, growing up and kind of getting to play and coach together, or, what's it been like this year?
He and Bo, they've been with me forever. And when we go to weight room stuff, my wife would be working, and so those 2 would tag along to the weight room. And so they've seen all the Hornet players, and to them, they're their heroes. That senior when you're in 3rd grade is the best player in the world. And these guys know how that is, and they've been able to go through and think that. But we don't talk a lot about what ifs. We talk about what's the next opportunity, what's the next thing to happen, because you never know when it's going to end. And luckily we made it to the point that we know this will be the last one. But just we didn't want to get in that moment. We just want to, let's just keep getting better, just keep going and doing those right things.
On paper, coach, there's an imbalance, and I want to stress on paper, right? Lena Winslow coming in, it's their 6th straight 1A state championship appearance. This will be Brown County's first. But when you get on the field, these are 2 teams that run smash mouth football out of wing formations and play really, really tough and fast defense. And those are comments that Coach Aaron just echoed a few minutes ago with us. So, what is this week of prep going to look like when you're about to go do battle with a team that really looks like a mirrored version of yourselves?
It's finding out what's the difference between the 2 programs, and you nailed it. They've been there and we haven't. So, we've got to get our kids mentally past those points of just being happy that you're going to go and get to play on the turf and get to play on a TV, and then people are going to watch you, and there's going to be broadcasters, and they got to get past that point. It's just football. And I think of that old Hoosiers movie where he gets the tape measure out and measures. I think that's where we're at as a community, that it's the same field. It's nicer, facilities, and it's turf instead of grass, and things like that. But it's football, and you just got to go out and play, and you're gonna have to deal with the elements. So you got to get past all those points. So I think that's the thing we're really going to work as a coaching staff to try to help this group overcome.
Yeah. Coach, we talked about, the family you have connected to you on the field this year. But let's talk about your brother, Rick, is the head coach of the Quincy Blue Devils. He's got, an amazing turnaround story of his own with that program that we've covered out of the Western Big Six. I wanted to ask you, how often do you talk to him, talk football with him during the regular season? Will you talk to him this week? Do you pick his brain about anything, or do you know more than him anyway?
No, I mean, tell you what, he's really smart. But if you've been around Rick, um, he likes to argue with you. So he and I go back and forth on a lot of stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter what I'm doing; it's not going to be right. And I'm just teasing. He's a great resource. But yes, he is. He's a character, and when he gets here and he talks about stuff, he usually gives me good input, and he's not afraid to say stuff, but he knows I'm not going to take everything he says, and I appreciate his honesty when he says stuff. In here, he runs a spread offense, we run power, but his football knowledge is big. So yeah, we talk, but we also try to just be brothers, and banter back and forth like brothers do.
Man, the power versus the spread argument at the Thanksgiving table has got to be epic in the little household.
Yeah, he's got wing T roots though, so he knows, and I think when Rick and I, when we both got started, we both talked about stuff, and when I was in Freeburg, they were spread, they were single back, and they did a lot, and I liked it. Man, we both took jobs, and we talked about it and said, in small school football, you're not always going to have that quarterback that can do it, but you're always going to have gritty kids that are going to block, and you're always going to have kids that want to run the football. And we've stuck with that mantra that's who we're going to be. And we've got some athletes that we really like doing some stuff, but we know that we are a power football team that's going to do it, and we got to keep doing what gets us there year in year out. If you want to be successful, just like Lean is and Camp Point and all those teams that get here all the time, they have a system and they do it and they stick with it no matter what.
So you touched on it just a minute here with us, but you also talked about it in the media call. You've got a chance here. This is the state championship for the first time at Brown County against the ultimate powerhouse in 1A football as of late. You talked about the keys to the game and the mindset of you wanting your team to finish. What does that look like, and how does this group get there?
I think it's just not losing focus. You get caught up in a lot of this stuff. They gave me a sub, and I never take a day off. So I'm sitting here in an office, and I see kids coming by the door trying to figure out why I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And it's getting past that point that, hey, this is just a normal football game. Against a really good team. And it's going to be a lot of people there, and it's going to be on TV and all these kind of things. But it's just football, and I think that's what our kids really have to get past, is just that we're just playing another game, and they're excited. And when you don't know, you don't know. And I said, sometimes that's better. When you haven't been there, you don't realize these moments and stuff. And we're like, we need to show them some, but they don't need to get overwhelmed with everything that's going on. So, it's just making sure these guys are prepared, playing confident, and doing what they're supposed to do.
Coach, we've got one final question for you. We like to talk a lot about uniforms on our podcast, and we'll certainly be doing a state championship uniform preview. I want to ask about that helmet. Certainly, as a Morrison grad, I've always loved the wing helmet. Certainly, it's an iconic helmet of any level of football. So, was that something that you brought to Brown County? What was the meaning behind that, and what's kind of the community feel about that great helmet there?
It was. When we got here, of course, we weren't very good. And we're three young coaches coming from state championship caliber team, and we're like, we need to change the mindset. And when we went through and started doing some stuff, we're like, maybe they'll give us the uniforms. I'm a huge Packers fan, so I'm like, they've got gold in it. Maybe we can get that, and we can do some cool stuff. And when you haven't done anything, they don't say yes to those kind of things. So when we came in, you're like, hey, we'd like to redo the uniforms. Like, we haven't won games for a long time, so that got nixed. So then when we went through. I'm colorblind green. Which is, I can see it. My shirt's green. I can see that, but I don't pass the test when it's green. So my brother, when he played at Blackburn, they had black and red helmets. So it had that red wing on it. And their coach said that was so that they could tell the difference, that there was going to be something that was dramatic in the helmet. And I said, let's try a white wing on that thing. And so we ordered a decal from Sports Decal, and they sent us one, and we took it to the locker room, and the kids just lit up. They said, this is it. And when we talked as coaches, it kind of fits what we do. We're old school. It's not a Hornet, and everybody's like, it's not a Hornet. It's not a Hornet. It's old school football. You think of those leather helmets that had that design on it. You think of Michigan, you think of those great great traditions, but I said, we're a wing T team, and that's a wing on our helmet. And I said, that's what we're going to be. And it stuck, and the community loves it. They won't want to change. I even said, when we're done, we're going to do some stuff. I said, they might change the helmet. And they said, I don't think they will. I don't think that it's going to be what Brown County is. We've been here for 24 years, I think, now. And, it's going to be what it is, and that's cool because I know Calhoun is that way. Their logo is from the '90s, and I think Coach Johns is the one that designed that. If I heard the story right, and there's tradition with it and things. So I hope it's something that sticks. Our alumni love seeing that winged helmet out there.
Yeah. Coach, that's great. And I do love that, Mitch's eyes light up, or his, the smile gets so big when he hears you talk about the kids loving that winged helmet, because that's what Mitch grew up with. That's what he played with. So I think it's really cool. And I think it's funny that, the Hornets and the Mustangs both use the winged helmet. So,
yeah, I tell you, it looks cool. I mean, I've seen some cool ones, those color, and accidentally, they sent us the reverse one time. They sent us a white helmet with the green, wing, and our kids saw that and they're like, Coach, and I'm like, guys, we would have to change everything. And they're like, what about an alternate helmet? We don't have that money. Like it is awesome looking. If you flip it to white and green, man, it looks sharp. But I said, this is who we are. This is it, and it is. I love it, and our kids love it. And I mean, there's winged helmets everywhere, throughout our community. So love seeing that.
Mitch, it's time to start a fundraiser in Mount Sterling and Brown County to get an alternate helmet every other week.
Sounds like it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if we could get that done, guys, our kids would be ecstatic. If we got that done, a GoFundMe. I tell you what, it does look cool, and like I said, we love the tradition of what it is. I think it was Florida State said, the uniform may change, but the helmet doesn't. I know that's the way it's going to be here for a long time. I hope.
Yeah. Well, hey, Coach, we really appreciate you taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy week for you, and good luck in your game prep, and enjoy the week, and we'll see you on Friday walking the sidelines, and it should be a fun one there in Normal.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks
Coach.
a lot, Coach.